Eating food from trash cans, trespassing, being lovely to strangers. Here are 7 things we do in games we never do in real life. We all do things in games no right-minded person would ever try in real life. This is more of an observation than a criticism. With some notable exceptions, the more like real-life games get, the less we want to play them. Nobody is rushing out to buy Career Failure Simulator or Call of Disappointment 2. We play games to escape the shackles of mundanity, safe in the knowledge that absolution for our unspeakable acts is only ever a reload away. But sometimes our choices are so strange, it shatters the sense of immersion. We eat food from bins, we stick our hands in filthy toilets, and we reload our rifles after every single shot, because who knows when that final precious bullet could be the one that saves us. This, then, is a celebration of all the absurd things we do in games. Real life is often confusing and difficult, and games get stuff wrong in exactly the right way. Here are 7 things we do in games we'd never do in real life. There's some obvious stuff we do in games, things that are wild, dangerous or completely illegal that aren't on this list. We'd never jump off a building or fight a car. But rather than acting as a warning, games, if anything, teach us that mild peril often results in profit. Because we're aware of how games work, we're happy to suspend common sense for the sake of reward. When Moira Brown from Fallout 3 asks me to do a variety of terminally Darwinian tasks, for example, I don't hesitate. Why, I'd be delighted to get radiation poisoning Moira. Anything to help you write your stupid book. We stick our hands into filthy, haunted toilets just to see what we find. We eat bear claws and bees, actual bees, because apparently it improves our alchemy skills. And we casually sashay into areas we know will lead to boss fights because really, we don't have any choice. The exception to this, or perhaps the thing it teaches us not to trust, is when games explicitly tell us not to do a thing because it'll kill us. But do we listen? No, of course not. Sleeping with Morinth in Mass Effect 2 was the romantic equivalent of sticking a spoon in a power supply, but I did it anyway just to see what happened. Agonising death, that's what happened, obviously. Silent Hill 3 goes one step further, highlighting the stupid stuff you've done in previous games. If you have a Silent Hill 2 save on your machine when you try and interact with a filthy toilet, words I hoped I'd never have to utter, you'll get this message from Heather.
Who would even think of doing something so disgusting?
Quite right, Heather. Who indeed? My second entry is a common one. It can be categorised as taking full advantage of a game's loot system or simple kleptomania. Almost since the time there were breakable boxes in games, we've been smashing them open and stealing everything inside.
I think you might be sick.
It's our God-given right, as the centre of each game's universe, to take whatever we want, whenever we want, even if it's as impolite as it is illegal.
How dare you?
When I go to a stranger's house in real life, I worry about eating the wrong number of cookies or stepping on their children and/or pets. But in games, I'm encouraged to rummage around in their linen box, empty their fridge, then leave, wearing their favourite clothes. Thank you for having me, Mrs. Grimble. I'll bring your armour back next week. I won't really. Of course, there are games that play with this expectation, punishing light-fingered players for their transgressions. Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening would famously brand players as thieves for stealing, shaming them by altering their save files for the rest of the game. And messing with a shopkeeper in Spelunky is a short route to a quick death. But then there are games that go a step further. Skyrim, for example, has a relatively elegant system for preventing theft and larceny, but it can be circumvented by sticking pots on people's heads so they can't see what you're picking up. Wow, look at you go, you master criminal. Admittedly, we all know people who come to your desk or home and feel some bizarre compulsion to mess with all your stuff. And while that's weird and annoying, it's not quite the same as a stranger filling their pockets with your to put that back. My next entry is a more general one on how characters move. Games have taught us an entirely different language of motion, one which we simply take for granted. Titles that encourage us to move like we do in real life are singled out as walking simulators, as if walking was weird. And maybe this is because we run everywhere in games. Perhaps I take issue with this because I'm unfit, or perhaps it's because I'm British, and all British people run like they're carrying invisible tubers. Truthfully, sprinting about is understandable. Nobody wants to spend 6 hours shuffling across Skyrim in full plate armour, although there probably is a mod for that, and I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. I'm talking more about the game-specific stuff you never see anywhere else. We roll, we clamber, and weirdest of all, we strafe. I mean, have you ever strafed anywhere in real life? And if you answered yes to that question, I can only assume you're watching me right now from the bushes outside my house, or you're 12 crabs in a trench coat, pretending to be human for some dark purpose. Now, there are some games that go out of their way to recreate the lumbering gait of a real human being. The Uncharted series, for instance, has Nathan Drake leaning on doorways as he drags his shattered frame about. And The Witcher 3's default control scheme makes Geralt move realistically, even if trying to maneuver him out of a small room feels like driving a drunk truck through a museum gift shop. And even with all these strides towards realism, Geralt still rolls about like a red panda on Christmas Eve. If games have taught us anything, it's that it's perfectly fine to bounce around your work colleagues like a romantic pinball, picking the flirt option for every single interaction you make.
I'm quite overcome.
Should I stop?
Illustrious franchises like Baldur's Gate and Dragon Age encourage us to roll the dice of seduction every chance we get, because why wouldn't we?
I was hoping we could spend some time together.
But even then, triple timing your digital paramours sometimes feels a bit seedy.
Are you asking because you're jealous?
I was simply concerned.
Maybe it's because I have the seductive prowess of an HB pencil, but I get nervous flirting with multiple characters. Even when I know it's not in the game, the thought of Iron Bull getting jealous of Cassandra paralyzes me with pretend embarrassment. It's a little like Love Island, but with crossbows and sorcery. Is this what happens on Love Island? I have literally no idea. And just like before, the exceptions test the rule. As games have grown more sophisticated, they've added ways to stop you sowing your wild oats quite so recklessly. Dragon Age Inquisition warns you before locking you into a romance with your chosen partner. And The Witcher 3 has a very specific punishment for anyone who tries to romance both Triss and Yennefer.
Ah, well. Ladies did quite a number on you.
Well, who's a coward now? It's still me, isn't it? Entry number 5 is a simple one, and it's been a staple of gaming as far back as early arcade games. After you've been shot, stabbed and stomped on, the easiest way to immediately heal your wounds is to eat some food. Some food you found in a trash can. If, like me, you grew up playing arcade games, you'll get a rush of excitement whenever you see a digitized trash can. It's the game telling me that I can A, suplex a baddie through the bin, B, find a delicious chicken in the bin, or C, suplex a baddie through the bin to reveal a delicious chicken. It's best not to think about where it came from, how long it's been there, or what your charming companion thinks about you munching on the mouldering fruit somebody else threw away. The fact this happens in Bioshock Infinite, a challenging examination of race, religion and idealism, is even more wonderfully absurd. I'll get back to rescuing you from this steampunk representation of American exceptionalism in a moment, Elizabeth, right after I've checked this trash can for cotton candy. The worst part of this isn't the self-loathing that comes with searching through other people's bins, I've grown used to that, but the paralysis that comes with knowing you can't move on until every trash can has been checked. It's Booker DeWitt via Oscar the Grouch. And now that I've mentioned that, I really want to play it. There's a proverb about hospitality that goes something like this. Never turn a person away from your door when they're the lead character in a billion-dollar gaming franchise. And while there are exceptions to that, largely because I've just made it up, most open-world games let you enter people's homes with impunity. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. There are few things in games worse than slapping into an unopenable door, but it's still not the sort of thing we dare try in real life. This is very similar to the earlier entry about stealing people's stuff, but if anything, it shows how comfortable we are violating people's personal space in games. Presumably, the NPCs are too busy wondering where their clothes have gone to notice me sleeping in their beds. There are a few games that offer the reverse of this, where your character is happy to give a home to complete strangers mere seconds after meeting them. What's that, menacing interloper? You'd like to come and live with me? Oh, of course, what could possibly go wrong? But for every murdering Knight Lautrec from Dark Souls, there are NPCs whose presence brings with it a range of wonderful buffs. And while things like trade, romance and enchantment...
Enchantment!
Yes, enchantments make a game easier, I wouldn't be quite so quick to hire out my spare room to curious drifters, however gifted. If this was a game, for example, we'd already know each other well enough for you to come and live at my house. That's not an invitation, by the way.
Isn't that right, boy?
Enchantment!
And then...
Oh, go on then, you cheeky monkey. You can have the shed. My final entry is one that maybe, just maybe, we should endeavour to try in real life. No matter how much peril the universe is in, no matter how many monstrous decisions you've made, there's always room in games for helping strangers do the weirdest, most mundane tasks.
You're no help at all.
Galaxy under threat from ancient, implacable space squid? Why, of course I've got time to stop for an autograph. Demons spilling through a breach in the veil? I'll be with you in just a moment, right after I've lit this candle for an NPC I can't even remember. One of the examples I was going to include here was repeatable quests, the idea of doing something over and over to scrape together a few coins or gain some experience. But it turns out most of us do this already anyway. It's called work, and if I did include it, I'd have to change the name of this feature to 7 things we thought we didn't do in real life, but it turns out we do, and now we're all crushed by existential dread. Catchy. I actually love these missions, as jarring as they sometimes are. Endless galactic threat can be wearying, so sometimes it's nice to just stop and explore, even if there's something odd about boogieing in a club while the future of all sentient life hangs in the balance. And then there's the slight problem of the dissonance that comes from gunning down endless grunts in one instance, and in another, stopping to help redeem the few who can actually talk.
Nobody died.
I could shoot someone if it'd make you feel better.
Now I know we can't help everyone we meet in real life, but maybe games have got this right, and real life is wrong. Your task then is to spend the rest of the day like a character from an RPG. Carry every little old lady's bag like your next level depends upon it. Treat every cry for help like an essential quest. And you can start right now. Subscribe to Logitech G, and I'll reward you with another video next week. What do you mean you'd rather have an enchanted sword? I can manage a mystical spork maybe, but that's probably it. Honestly, some people.